Have you been looking for some new ideas to inspire you for your fall decorating? Well, if so, I have a video for you. I have put together over 30 fall crafts to help inspire you to get ready for fall decorating for 2024.
It all just goes away. The things I plan to say. Oh, baby.
So some of the easiest crafts to start with are Cricut crafts. And I'm going to be using my Cricut machine to cut out some vinyl and repurpose some of these Dollar Tree items that I have. So the first thing I have is this sign. This is a 4" by 4" sign. And after I sanded the surface smooth, then I gave it a couple of coats of burnt umber paint. Burnt umber is like a dark brown, and it just seems to go with everything when you're decorating for fall. Now, while that was drying, I grabbed a couple of these Dollar Tree pumpkins. They have these every year. I love these pumpkins. And I'm going to start by removing the stems. Then I'm going to use my hot glue gun and glue 2 of these signs together. Then using some pumpkin orange paint, I painted both of the pumpkins so that hopefully they'll look like one piece. And while that was drying, I grabbed a piece of scrap wood and I also painted that pumpkin orange. Now, sometimes you may have limited time for crafting like me, so what I like to do is do several projects at one time. So I have the small sign, I have the pumpkins, and I have this scrap piece of wood that I'm working on all at the same time. And after I put a thick layer of paint onto the scrap piece of wood, then I came back with my brush and just put some white lines onto the wet paint and then just smoothed everything out and blended it together. And then I went on Cricut Design Space and I just found some different fall sayings. So this one is probably one of my favorite, and I really liked the pumpkin. And it says pumpkin kisses and harvest wishes. I thought this was so cute, and I just found it in Design Space. If you have a Design Space membership, you can find all kinds of projects like these, and they're included in your membership. Then using Cricut vinyl, I put that onto my burnt umber sign. And I wanted to give it a little bit of something extra, so I had this pumpkin ribbon that I got from Dollar Tree, and I just used my hot glue gun and I put that all around the 4 sides of the sign. And then that project is done. Then for my next project, I had this really pretty iridescent paper that came from one of the Cricut monthly packs where they're like surprises and you get all kinds of different things. And I thought it would look really pretty in a stencil material on my pumpkin. So I just cut it out with my Cricut and then applied it. And then I put some raffia on the side of the pumpkin just to give it some dimension. And what I forgot to show you was I used a stick for the pumpkin stem. Sticks are great pumpkin stems. And here are 3 projects that I was able to do relatively quickly using different vinyl from Cricut, as well as accessing the Cricut membership. You can find so many neat projects simply by typing in a word into Design Space. There's one thing that isn't Dollar Tree, and you can probably see that off in the side. But first, I got this charger. Isn't it cute? I like it. It's very shiny, but it's not going to stay this way. And this is the only piece I got from Walmart, and it's beaded garland, and it was $5.98. And they didn't have anything like this at the Dollar Tree, and I really needed this for my project. So I went ahead and spent $6 and bought this beaded garland. And the first thing I did was figure out how much of this garland I was going to need to use for my plate or my charger. So I measured off how much of the beaded garland I was going to need, and then I cut it. And once it was cut, then I used my hot glue gun and put glue around the edge of the charger. And this is where I'm going to attach that garland. Now, this is a little bit of a painstaking process. This was probably the most challenging part of the entire project, but this is the look that I was going for, so to me, it was worth it. Edge of the plate. And I did have one spot that was a little bit too small for another bead to be placed, and I didn't like that it wasn't completely finished. So I found a smaller bead that I had in this bead collection, and I just plugged in one of the tinier beads in between the two beads on the end. So it's not exactly perfect, but it'll work. Charger. Then I took this vase, I guess it's a vase from the Dollar Tree, and I attached it to the bottom of the plate. Now, you have to be careful if you're doing this because sometimes your glue can get super hot, and if it's too hot, it can actually melt the charger. So I just was spreading the glue around on the bottom of the vase, allowing it to cool down a little bit before I put it on the charger. And then I just found the center and attached it. And if you have E6000 glue or a craft glue that's an adhesive, you can use that too. But I was kind of in a hurry to get this done, so I just used the hot glue sticks. All right, so there is basically my charger, a raised charger, I guess you could say. And then I took my project out into the garage, and I had a can of Rust-Oleum High Gloss White spray paint, and I just spray painted it. And I did have to use about 3 coats of spray paint because the white beads really drew in the paint, so it took a couple of layers of spray paint to get it so that it was all uniform and all looked the same. But this is exactly the look that I was going for. All right, so now I have to have something to put on my display. So I have this Dollar Tree pumpkin that I had painted white, and then I have a bunch of this ribbon that I got from the Dollar Tree as well. And then I had my scissors and my glue gun. And then I just attached the ribbon to the pumpkin, one strip at a time. And I found it was the easiest to start the seam to try and keep it straight. And I just applied the ribbon to the pumpkin. Now, this is the speeded up version, and I am just working my way around the pumpkin, and the goal is to cover the entire pumpkin with this ribbon. And I ended up using about three and a half spools of this Dollar Tree ribbon. And this one I've been buying off and on for a long time now because anytime I find it, I just pick up 1 or 2 of them because sometimes they don't have them. And actually lately, the Dollar Tree hasn't had a lot of the crafting supplies that I need. So I just basically stockpile it and buy a couple every time I go. Now, once I had the pumpkin mostly covered with the first ribbon, then I took another style and then I just put that in any places where you can still see the white that's kind of showing through. So it's kind of a layered ribbon approach, I guess, for my pumpkin. And if you wanted to keep the pumpkin orange, you could completely do that. In fact, I have another pumpkin that I made and I left him orange and it looks kind of cool with the ribbon and then the orange is kind of poking through. But for this project, I had already painted this pumpkin, so I was like, you know what? I'm just going to use him. Okay, we are almost done with the ribbon part of this. So now I've got to figure out what am I going to use for a stem. So I went out in my front yard and I found a twig or a stick and I cut off a piece of it, and this is going to be my pumpkin stem. So I just used my hot glue gun and put some glue on top, and then I attached the stick or my new stem and allowed it to dry. So there is my rustic pumpkin. And then I wanted to add a little bit of extra, so I added some embellishments with some raffia that I had. And then I had a couple of leaves, and I had some wired jute twine that, again, I got from the Dollar Tree. And then I just added a little bit of something extra to the top of my pumpkin. And there is my Dollar Tree rustic pumpkin all ready to go on the display. All right, so now I have my display all ready for my dining room table. So after I put the charger plate, then I put some Dollar Tree garland around the base of it. And then I just started adding things and playing with what I have. So these napkins, which are for Thanksgiving anyway, thought let's put these on and see what it looks like. And then there's my rustic pumpkin. And then I had these Dollar Tree flowers. Again, I've had these for a while, but they all came from the Dollar Tree. And I just kind of added the flowers around the base of the pumpkin. Now, if you wanted to, you could cut the stems off so that they're just singular, and that might actually work a little bit better. But I was just playing around to see how this would look, and with my pumpkin in the center. I think I ended up using about 7 bunches of the Dollar Tree flowers, and then just some little cut pieces that I had from other flowers. And then once I was happy with the flowers, I added in my glitter pumpkins just around the base and added a few extra flowers here and there just to make sure that it's full all the way around the base of the pumpkin. And then I also found these maple leaves, and I took those out of the packaging and then just placed them randomly around the base of my display. The end product, I'm really happy with how this turned out, and I really like the charger plate, and I like the roundness of the display, because if you're having a Thanksgiving dinner at your home, you don't want your centerpiece to be taking up the entire table. That was why I decided to go with a round centerpiece. And just so you can see, we still have plenty of room for all of the Thanksgiving goodies to go around the centerpiece. And we have a very festive and fall centerpiece for our Thanksgiving table. I'm going to be using this little pumpkin that I got from the Dollar Tree, but I want to keep that embellishment because I'm probably going to use him in a craft in the future. So I'm going to remove that silver leaf. It's metal. It is awesome. And I'm also going to go ahead and fill in that little hole at the top of the stem of the pumpkin. And I'm just using some spackling compound that I have. I think I got this at Home Depot. I don't know, but this stuff is wonderful for crafts. And next, I'm going to take a bunch of these Dixie cups that I got from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to go ahead and separate them out. And then I'm just going to take some acrylic paint that I got from the Dollar Tree, Walmart, Hobby Lobby, all over the place. And I'm going to put different colors into these little cups. I've seen people do different pour paint projects, and unfortunately I don't have any pour paint. So I wanted to see if I could do something that was fall related using just regular acrylic paint and make a pouring project. And you already saw the pumpkin, so I'm pretty sure you can guess what I'm going to be doing a pour paint on. So I'm not mixing the paints together. I'm just using different acrylic paints that I have, and I'm just putting different color combinations into the Dixie cups. Now, the red and the orange, these are actually from the Dollar Tree, and they're a big bottle of acrylic paint, and they actually are a little bit more liquidy, which is a good thing because here's my beautiful little paint colors, and I think they look cute in the Dixie cups. But when I went to pour them out, they didn't really pour out very well. So I just went ahead and put the paint onto the pumpkin. So I've got a lot of different paint colors going on, and unfortunately the paint is pretty thick. So I went in and I grabbed those 2 big bottles of acrylic paint, and you can see these are a lot more runny than the other acrylic paints. And now that I have all the paint, I'm just going to pick up that pumpkin and move him around and try to get some different color combinations and some different patterns onto the pumpkin. So even if you don't have pour paints, if you have acrylic paints, you can do something like this. I think it would work too if you added a little bit of water to the acrylic paint to make it a little runnier, because I'm pretty sure the pour paints are a thinner consistency. So once that was dry, I had this Deco Art triple thick glaze and it was pretty old. So I literally had to cut a hole in the top of it. And then I just poured it on top of the pumpkin because this is going to give it a really nice glazed appearance. So I'm just going to pour this glaze all over the pumpkin. And then I'm just going to use a paintbrush and make sure that the painted surface is completely coated. Now, in between each of the layering processes, I have made sure to really give each layer the time that it needs to dry. So the first layer took about 24 hours, and I'm going to leave that glaze to sit for about 24 hours before attempting to move on to the next part of the project. And this is what it looks like once the glaze has completely dried. There's our original pumpkin, and here is the back of it. I think he looks pretty cool. It definitely has a glazed look. So I had this sign that says thankful, and I think I got it from Hobby Lobby, possibly the Dollar Tree. But what I want to do is put this on top of my pumpkin. And I'm just going to put a little bit of the E6000 onto the back. You don't need very much of the E6000. It adheres very well to projects. So once I had some of that on, then I just flipped the sign over and figured out where I wanted that thankful to rest, and then just pressed it in place. Then I let it set for about 24 hours before putting it up so that I could enjoy it. Here is the finished product. I think it looks really pretty. And no, it may not have been pour paint, but I think it worked pretty well. All right, this is a fun and easy one. So I've got these cute little pumpkin signs, and while I really like that idea, I wanted something a little bit different. So I took some Thanksgiving themed paper and I measured out at least what I thought was going to be the size that I needed, but I was going on the outside of the frame. So I just used a X-Acto knife and just cut out pieces of that paper. But when I went to put it in, it was too large. So I did have to trim it down, and I just used a little Cricut cutting tool. This thing is awesome. I would highly encourage you to have this in your craft room because there are so many uses for it, not just cutting vinyl. So what I did was I found the edges and I gave myself basically a guide, and then I cut out the paper using my guide. So once I had the paper the right size, then I took some folk art wax and I painted the frame. So I painted the inside part so I could make sure to get the inside edges of the frame as well as the frame itself on the outside. So all sides of the frame, inside and outside, were repainted with the folk art wax. And once the paint had dried, then I could put the background paper into the frame. And I just used some wood glue from the Dollar Tree to secure the paper in place. And both of my signs are going to have the same background, but that is about where the similarity is going to end. So now I'm just taking the little pumpkins, which are actually a pretty thick paper from the Dollar Tree signs, and I'm going to go ahead and trace out on some pretty fall themed like cardstock, and then I'm just going to cut out the pumpkin. Now this is the first time that I've seen these signs at the Dollar Tree, and like I said, I really like the signs themselves, but I wanted to change them a little bit. I didn't want the pumpkins to have words on them, which is why I decided to use some scrapbooking paper that I had because I have tons of scrapbooking paper. So I went ahead and cut out the pumpkin on a really cool piece of paper. I think that looks really cool. And then I secured it in place to the original pumpkin that was on the sign. So again, I just used the wood glue and put the paper in place over top of the pumpkin. And now I have a new pumpkin. And next I took a couple of the tumbling tower blocks to raise my pumpkin up off of the background, which is what I wanted it to do. And I like that a lot. So again, using the Dollar Tree wood glue, I secured 2 tumbling tower blocks to the backing of my little pumpkin sign. And then once that was secured in place, then I put a little bit more glue on the top and then just put the pumpkin back on. I repeated the process with the other sign as well. Look at that. And here are my cute little pumpkins hanging up. This one is hanging in my dining room next to my kitchen. And then I hung the other one near the front entry to our home. Oh my goodness, this one is so much fun. Have you seen this ribbon that they have at the Dollar Tree? This is like wire ribbon and it's about 1 inch wide and you can cut it super easy. So I'm gonna make a pumpkin with this. So what I'm doing is I'm cutting off strips of this wire ribbon, and if I remember correctly, they are about 12 inches long. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to cut 8 pieces of this ribbon 12 inches long. Now, you could do any size that you wanted to do. I would recommend cutting off like 2 pieces to see if you like the size of it, and then you can determine if you want it to be smaller or larger. I wouldn't go much larger than 12 inches because that's a pretty big pumpkin. And before doing this, I do have these cute little finger protectors. So I'm gonna just put some hot glue on one end of the ribbon, and I'm going to attach another ribbon. And can you see why those little finger protectors are so important? So what I'm doing is just attaching the ribbon, and this is going to be the pumpkin shape. So I attach 2 pieces together, and then I'm gonna do the opposite pieces. And I did use a little bit of wire to give this a little bit more strength and to make it more sturdy. Now, while I was doing that, I did go ahead and secure the bottom pieces as well before moving on to the 5th piece. And I just repeated the process, putting the wire onto the top of my pumpkin, and using some hot glue, secured that wire in place, and then repeated the process with the remaining pieces of the wire ribbon. So now I have 6 pieces in place. I'm almost done with the wiring part, but I do again want to add a little bit more strength. So I am going to use some very lightweight wire to the base of the ribbon. That's where all that hot glue is. And I'm just going to kind of twist that wire around, and this will give a little bit more sturdiness or strength to the pumpkin. And next I did do a little hot glue over that wire to really secure it down. And all that was left to do was to attach the 2 remaining pieces of the wire ribbon to my pumpkin. And then I did do a little bit more wire. I really don't want my pumpkin to come apart. My pumpkin needed a stem, so I did a little bit more glue on the top of the pumpkin. And then using one of the Dollar Tree pumpkin stems that I had from another Dollar Tree pumpkin, I secured it into the glue. And then I used some like paper covered floral wire just to give some like little tendrils to the top of my pumpkin. I had this mirror effect spray paint from Rust-Oleum and I haven't used it, so I was like, you know what, I'm going to use that to make my pumpkin all one color. And the wire ribbon is really pretty in silver, but it wasn't like super silver, and my stem was different, and of course then I have all of that hot glue. So I just covered it with the spray paint, and honestly I am so happy with how my pumpkin turned out. Look at it. Look at this pumpkin. Isn't that adorable? So pretty. And I have another fun project. I took a Dollar Tree vase, some old beaded necklaces, and just some cotton string that I had. I don't even know how big this is. I will leave a link in the description box below. But I have a bunch of these beaded necklaces, like the super cheap little kiddo necklaces that I've been saving for a project. So I took my Dollar Tree vase, and what I did first was I attached that cotton rope to the top of the vase. So what I'm going to be doing is doing different layers of the rope and then the beads. So I did 2 layers of the rope first, and then I did 1 layer of the beads. Now I tried this with different size beads you can see off on the side, but I really liked the size that these green beads were. So that was what I decided to use. And like I said, I just alternated layers. So I have the top, then I have a layer of the beads. And now I'm going to do another layer of the cotton rope. And I just continued this process all the way down the vase. But when I got towards the bottom of the vase, I decided I wanted it to be more like the same. So I just wrapped the rest of the vase with the cotton rope. This is a really good way to use those extra odds and ends that you may have in your craft room and you don't know what to do with them. Now, once that part was done, I had this plaster. So I decided to take some plaster. It was about 1 cup of plaster and then some Elmer's glue. The Elmer's glue helps to prevent the plaster from cracking. So I put the Elmer's glue into the plaster and mixed it up with water and got kind of a pancake mix consistency. And then I painted that all over the vase. Now this mixture was pretty thick. It was a little thicker than I wanted it to be, but I went ahead and put that all over my vase. Really want to be able to see those little beads, like the pattern of it. So I did put a little bit of water onto the vase while it was wet. And I just tried to remove some of that extra plaster that was on there. And I was able actually to get some of it off, so I can see the beads a little bit better now. Then I just used a wet paper towel and took off a little bit more so I could really see the beads. And once that had dried, I used some all-in-one chalk paint. This is Heirloom Traditions chalk paint in white or cashmere, and I painted the entire vase. I was thinking I wanted this to be white, but because it is fall and it's like harvest time, I decided I wanted something a little bit different than just the white. But I was committed now. I had already started the white, so I went ahead and painted the entire vase with the chalk paint. Then I took some of this terracotta paint and some Dollar Tree sand, poured them into a bowl together, and mixed everything up. And I thought I had enough of the terracotta paint, but I don't believe that I did. So I found a different color of terracotta and I blended all of those together. So the paint and the sand, blending everything together. So that sand that's in with the terracotta paint is really going to give it some texture, as you can see. And look at my cute little vase. I like that color much better. So I have the texture from the plaster, the rope, and the beads, and now I have the added texture of the terracotta paint as well as the sand. So I painted all over the chalk paint, the inside, the outside, everywhere that was coated with the chalk paint, I repainted with the terracotta sand mixture. And while I'm painting away, I just wanted to say, if this is the first time that you found one of my videos, I wanted to tell you welcome and thank you so much for watching. I would love it if you would consider subscribing to my channel, and then if you click that bell notification, you'll be alerted every time I have a new video coming out. And to those of you who have been around for a while or have been following me for any length of time, thank you so much for your continuing support. Then I let the terracotta paint dry, and once it was dry, I took it outside and using some triple thick glaze spray paint, I spray painted the entire vase. This definitely has a festive and fall appearance, and I really like the texture of the vase. I think it gives a little bit of something extra, and it is definitely different, and I don't think I've ever seen this in a Dollar Tree DIY video. But I love that terracotta paint so much I couldn't just do a vase. So I grabbed a pumpkin. I think I actually got this one at the Dollar Tree too. I love the Dollar Tree. And I painted the entire pumpkin with the terracotta paint. Then I wanted to give it a little bit of depth, so I added in some cream color paint, just a little bit, just so I can have some different shades of the terracotta and maybe even a little bit of cream. Who knows? We're going to find out in a minute. But I like the different levels of dimension. I find that it makes it look like three-dimensional. It looks like you can, especially with something like a pumpkin, you really can see the different levels and the shading, and it just really works. And I thought you might like this painting technique too. It's super easy. And here is my terracotta sand painted pumpkin. Definitely a wonderful addition to my fall decorating. But we're not finished yet. Oh no. Have you ever seen those cute little signs that they have in the Dollar Tree, like this one, Happy Harvest? I've always wanted to paint signs like this, but I was afraid I was going to lose the pattern and then it was going to look like, you know, it was done by a kindergartner. But the fun thing is with these signs, if you're using acrylic paint, you can still see the pattern through the paint. The hardest part with this one was, though, that Happy Harvest, that was actually all glitter. So I didn't want to ruin the glitter and just paint everything blue and then go from there. So I did try to be a little bit careful in between the lettering of the Happy Harvest. I just painted in the rest of the areas almost like if I were coloring in a coloring book. So the background of the pumpkins, that's supposed to be, I believe, the window to the truck, I went ahead and painted that white. And then the fun part, I painted the pumpkins. So if you follow the pattern and just paint the base layer, like I said, you'll still be able to see the pattern. And then I just brought in some different colors while the paint was still wet and added in the lines following the original pattern. So once I was finished with my Happy Harvest truck, then I needed something to hang it on. So they had these rounds at the Dollar Tree and they have different sayings. This one said family, which I probably will save that metal for another project. And then I just took that round and traced around it. Get it? I traced around the round onto some of that harvest paper that I have these huge notebooks for. These are the 12 by 12 collections of different scrapbook papers that you can find at Hobby Lobby and Michael's, and usually you can find them for pretty cheap. So because I've kind of ripped up the paper on this little wooden round, I'm actually going to do 2 levels. So this first level, it's not really going to show through, but this will make everything nice and one surface. Then I took the paper that I really want to be the backdrop for my little harvest truck. I went ahead and traced the circle. And then just using some regular scissors, I went ahead and cut it out. Now I did make the cutout a little bit larger because I can get rid of the excess paper and it's easier to have it be a little bit bigger when I put it on versus too small. So then I just used the Dollar Tree wood glue. then secured my pretty paper to the wood round. And you can see the paper is larger than the round itself. So then using an X-Acto knife, I just cut off the excess of the paper. And then I just carefully peeled the edges away. Most of the wood glue had already dried the paper in place onto the round. And next I took my Happy Harvest sign that had time to dry and figured out where I wanted it to go and then placed it in place. And then I just added some embellishments. I really liked these yellow leaves. I think I had them for another project. And it didn't have quite as many leaves as I wanted it to, so I just added a few more. And then I also did add some leather cordage around the round itself before hanging it up. All right, here is a fun project using a Dollar Tree crate. And I think this is wood, birch wood, that I got from Hobby Lobby a while ago when it was like 75% on clearance. I always love going and getting things on clearance because I know that I can use them in the future. So this wood is really cool because it's like cut in half and then it's secured on the back with some felt, which is perfect for my project. So I just figured out how much of the wood that I'm going to be using, and then I just hot glued it to the wood crate. And the most important thing is make sure you get the corners if you're going to be doing this. Make sure the corners line up so that the wood will just kind of fold around the crate. And these little wood pieces are actually a little bit taller than the crate itself, which is perfect because you're not going to see the crate. And what I'm doing is I'm making a planter for some faux flowers or silk flowers. And there is my cute little wooden vase. So now all I have to do is add the flowers. And next I just took pieces and branches of different silk flowers that I've had from other projects. Actually, some of these I think I got on Temu too. And once I had put some floral foam into the crate itself, then all I had to do was take those stems and just put them in place. And it seems like the more stems you use, that is how you're going to make the arrangement fuller. Because I will be the first to tell you, as you can probably tell, I am not a floral arranger, but it's really fun to work with florals and different pieces and just kind of play around and end up with something like this. So I am super happy with how this project turned out. Actually, I'm super happy with how all of my projects turned out. Make a wreath for my front door. And I did this using different dollar store flowers that I got. And they had a huge selection of fall color leaves. So I bought a whole bunch of fall color leaves. And I even bought the wreath frame at the dollar store for, of course, $1. And then what I did was just take the different pieces of leaves and just tied them using floral wire to the wreath frame. And then I took some yellow flowers that I found at the dollar store and I just dismantled the flowers and I used my glue gun to glue the flowers in place to give the wreath a really full appearance. And then I had some little embellishments that I just added. And that is pretty much what the wreath looks like, but I wanted to add a bow. And I actually made this bow using wire edged ribbon from the dollar store, and then I attached it using the floral wire. Now these really pretty gold pieces I didn't get at the dollar store, but I did find them at Hobby Lobby and they were on sale for 60% off. So even though this was a little bit more expensive of an addition, it still was a really good deal, and it adds a little bling and glitter to my wreath for my front door. And that's my wreath all done. But let me show you how I made the bow. It was really easy, and you just need some wire edged ribbon and some floral wire. So first I took the wire edged ribbon and I just figured out how long I wanted the bow to be, and then I folded the ribbon over on top of itself. And I did this for like, I think it was 6 or 7 revolutions. Then I unfolded the ribbon opposite of how I had unwound it, and then I took a pair of scissors and just cut about midway through the ribbon, almost to the center on each side. Don't cut all the way through, otherwise you're going to cut your bow before you made it. And then I just threaded through some floral wire and wrapped it around the center. And then I took a little bit more of the wired ribbon, and this is going to be the tail. So I cut off a portion of the ribbon and attached it to the back of the bow section of my bow. And this was burlap ribbon that I'm using right now, so the floral wire goes through it really easily. And then I just added the tails and fed through the wire and then just tied it together. And this is the beginning of my bow. So once I had it all completed and tied together, then I just took out the loops and twisted them to open them up. This is why it's really important to use the wire edged ribbon, because it gives a little bit more shape to your bow. But I wanted to add a little something extra to the center because I don't like it where it's just plain. So I took a little bit more of the burlap ribbon and just folded it over, and that's going to be the center part of my bow. So I just used my glue gun to attach the pieces, and that's what it'll look like. And then I took another piece of the floral ribbon and attached the center of the bow to the rest of the bow. And now all that's left to do is to make a fancy ending on the tails of the bow. So what I did was fold it in half and just cut off the corner, and then that gives you the fancy looking tail on your bow. And this is the wreath all completed and hanging up on my front door. And actually the wreath hanger, I even got that at the dollar store for $1. I think it turned out pretty nice, and it was very easy to make. And then next I also made this long box. It's like a display box, and I added in some dollar store LED candles, which are awesome because it even had the battery inside. And then I just took some fall flowers that I found at the dollar store, and then I just added them around the candles and all throughout the box. And on the inside of the box there's some floral foam, and that is what I can use to push down the flowers and keep them all in place. And my favorite part about this project is I can change out the display depending on what season it is I'm decorating for. So right now we're in fall, getting ready for Thanksgiving. So this will be my fall Thanksgiving centerpiece. And then when Christmas comes around, then I can change it out and add some festive red and green flowers or whatever I want to add. And this is the finished product, my beautiful little long box waiting for Thanksgiving dinner. Even the little pumpkins on my display were from the dollar store. And I also wanted to add some floral decor for my entryway, I guess, or my front porch. And I also took dollar store flowers and actually Walmart flowers, which were cheaper. They were 97 cents a bunch. And I just filled these trash can planters that I made with different fall foliage. And I even got the little scarecrows. Those were from the dollar store as well. This is a project that is so easy. You can do it in an afternoon. You could probably do all of these projects in an afternoon if you wanted to dress up your house a little bit for Thanksgiving or just for fall in general. All right, so we're gonna start with a $3 Dollar Tree pumpkin and some all-in-one chalk paint. I love this stuff. This is Heirloom Traditions, and it's awesome. I use it a lot. And basically all I have to do is remove the tag and then start painting. Now I am gonna do several coats of this paint on the pumpkin because after I get done painting, I am going to take outside and give the pumpkin a couple of coats of a high gloss spray paint. But I don't want to melt this pumpkin, and this pumpkin is foam. So by adding a couple of coats of the chalk paint, I'm hopeful that it will not melt the pumpkin when I take it outside. But I really like this chalk paint. It works really well. It goes on very nice. And it has a nice kind of a matte finish to it, which is really pretty. Unfortunately for my pumpkin, I want him to be super glossy and shiny. That's why I'm going to take the pumpkin out in my garage and we're going to give it a high gloss shine. And these are the stickers that I'm going to be using. These are glitter flourish stickers. And here is my pumpkin all nice and shiny. And I'm just going to peel these stickers off and apply them all over the pumpkin. And the stickers themselves are actually really strong. So they're adhered pretty well to the backing. And even though they don't come off super easy, like I said, they're very strong and they can withstand being tugged on a little bit. So once I have the sticker removed, then I'm going to place him on my pumpkin. Just like that. Ooh, I really like how that looks. And then I'm just going to use all of the stickers that are on this package and I'm going to put them all over my pumpkin. And on this sticker pack, it actually comes with 50 separate stickers. And that includes all those little dots and the little S's and all of the little tiny pieces too. And there were enough stickers for me to go all the way around the pumpkin with the big stickers. And then I went back with some of the littler ones to make everything kind of blend together, I guess. And you know what I always say, there is no right or wrong way how to do this. You don't have to use gold stickers. You could use black stickers or anything you wanted. Or if you were really artistic, you could probably draw them onto the pumpkin itself. But I didn't like the stem that color, so I took some folk art gold paint and I painted the stem gold. That way it'll complement the gold stickers on the pumpkin. And there is my pretty pumpkin. What I didn't show you was I actually painted this first. So this is one of the velvet covered $5 pumpkins from the Dollar Tree. And then I found these little cocktail napkins at Hobby Lobby when they were 40% off. So first I'm going to separate the napkin. These napkins actually are 2-ply, so they have actually 2 parts. So I'm going to separate the printed part from the white part, which we don't need. And then I'm going to cut out some of the napkin. Now you don't necessarily have to do this, but I was playing around and just wanted to see what it would be like to actually cut out some of the pattern pieces and apply them to my pumpkin. So I'm just cutting out different parts of the napkins to make smaller pieces that will make it easier to apply to the pumpkin. And I really liked the sunflowers, so I did take a little bit of extra time and cut out a few sunflowers, even cutting out the sunflower leaves. I guess those are leaves, petals. Yeah, petals. So I was cutting out a lot of the petals just to make some little tiny pieces to put onto the pumpkin. And then, of course, you need Mod Podge. Mod Podge is the king of decoupage. I think this is what it was originally made for, wasn't it? And I'm going to apply it using a foam brush to the back of the napkin. Now I'm just kind of putting some on there, and then I'm going to just put it on the pumpkin. How easy is that? That you can't get any easier than that, really. And I'm just kind of going around and securing the edges down. And next I'm going to cover that napkin with the Mod Podge. Now, if you work in smaller sections and smaller pieces of the material, like the napkin that you're going to put on the pumpkin, it's actually a little bit easier because then you don't get wrinkles. Especially with a pumpkin, you can see all of the little nooks and crannies. So sometimes the napkin will get wrinkles in it. Now, for my project, this was okay. I'm all right with the wrinkles. But if you don't want to have wrinkles in your finished project, I would highly encourage you to use very small pieces of the napkin when you're applying it to the pumpkin. And I just continued around the pumpkin, applying different napkin pieces and then securing them down with more Mod Podge. And here is my Decoupage pumpkin. I'm really happy with how he's looking so far, but of course we have to add some adornments to the top. And I actually made a stem for him using some air dry clay that I got from a Michael's grab bag box, I think last fall. So I finally found a use for the air dry clay by making some pumpkin stems and then painting the stem with different acrylic paints. And I never threw anything out, so I did have some pieces of some glittery leaves, so I'm going to go ahead and use those on top of the pumpkin as well. And then I used some raffia to make a bow to tie on. And I'm not really good at making bows, so basically I took 2 sections of raffia and I made the bow in 2 separate sections and then attached it using hot glue. It kind of looks like a bow. And here is my adorable decoupage pumpkin. And this was my first attempt at doing decoupage, and actually I'm really happy with how he turned out. He is so pretty and he looks very fall-like. And I'm going to be painting this with Spanish moss chalk paint. So I'm holding on to the pumpkin and I'm gonna go ahead and apply this paint. I have found that the chalk paint works really well for painting these foam pumpkins. And I was looking for a sagey green and this was the closest paint that I had. So I went ahead and painted the entire pumpkin with a coat of the Spanish moss chalk paint. And I did find this chalk paint in a set. I got like 12 of them on Amazon. I will leave a link in the description box below in case you were wanting a whole bunch of different chalk paints to add to your collection. And this chalk paint worked pretty well to basically do 1 coat of paint on the pumpkin. And once my pumpkin was dry, then I decided to use some folk art wax. Whoops, that's my new one. I need to use this one up first. So this is folk art wax, and this is a dark wax, and it doesn't take very much of this to get some really neat antique-y look to whatever it is that you're painting, and it works really well with chalk paint. So I'm just going to go ahead and brush on this wax over the pumpkin. And if you're going to do this yourself, you don't have to worry. That wax does not dry too fast, so you can actually go back and remove a lot of the excess wax pretty easily. And to remove that wax, I'm just using a microfiber towel that I got from the Dollar Tree. So then I just added some more wax to the remaining half of the pumpkin that still needed to be antiqued. And then I wiped off the excess wax again. And I really like how that color is turning out. So I'm just going to go over the pumpkin just a little bit more and add a little bit more wax to where there's still a little too much of that original Spanish moss showing through. And I need to make sure to get the bottom side of the pumpkin as well. And then using some folk art gold paint, and this is a metallic color, I just blended that gold in with the wax that was still on the paintbrush. Now this is just going to give a little bit of extra depth to the pumpkin itself. And then I allowed my pumpkin to dry, and this is how he looks. And next I found these succulents, these faux succulents on Amazon. It was a package of them for about $16, but these are going to go on top of my pumpkin. So next I took out the center portion of the pumpkin, and this is pretty easy because it is made from foam. So you just have to be really careful and be sure to cut away from you if you're doing this project. And then I just removed the interior portion, just where the stem goes, and I basically took a plug of that foam out. This way it'll make it easier for the succulent stems to come from the top of the pumpkin. And then I just used my hot glue gun and secured the succulents to the top. Now I did end up using all of those succulents for this project, but if you wanted to use something else, you could, or you could just use a couple of the succulents. It's up to you. It's your pumpkin. You do what you want. And I did also add a little bit of extra greenery that I had from other projects because I wanted some different green colors to really kind of make the succulents pop. And I just played around with the succulent pieces and just kind of adjusted how I thought they would look good. And when I found a place that I thought one piece would look nice, then I went ahead and secured it with some more hot glue. And I don't know about you, but for me, it helps to kind of pick it up and look at it and see where I should be putting an extra little piece of something. So that was what I did. I picked it up and just kind of kept looking at it, adding in some extra greenery just to get the look that I wanted. And I think he is just about done. Yep. And here is the finished project. This is a adorable little Dollar Tree pumpkin that I topped with some different succulents and just some leftover pieces from other projects. Overall, I have to say I am really happy with how he turned out. I think he is an adorable addition to my fall decor. So for this pumpkin, I am using a more expensive pumpkin from the Dollar Tree, and this pumpkin was $3. It is a foam pumpkin, but it's a little bit larger than the smaller carvable pumpkins. So I am going to leave the stem in place. And the first thing I'm going to do is paint the pumpkin black. And because I have so much chalk paint, I am using black chalk paint. Now I have found that if I'm going to be spray painting a foam pumpkin, I get better results if the pumpkin is painted first, because if you just try to spray paint a styrofoam pumpkin, a lot of times they will melt. So I want to prevent my pumpkin from melting because I am going to be using spray paint. So I am giving him a nice coat of black paint first. And this is the base for the Mercury glass look. So the black will show through a little bit. And when I'm done painting, I let him dry completely before the next step. And the next step is to spray him with vinegar that is in a spray bottle. This is white vinegar that I give him a nice bath. Then I used Rust-Oleum Mirror Effect spray paint, and I sprayed that over top of the vinegar onto the pumpkin. And if the pumpkin dries a little bit, then you just hit it with the vinegar one more time, and then you spray it with the mirror spray paint. I found that using light coats of the spray paint and then going back and using the vinegar really helped to give the Mercury glass look. And next, before the paint had time to dry, I used a clean microfiber cloth, and that removes some of the vinegar, and this is what helps to give that Mercury glass look. And I really like the black or the dark color of the base of the pumpkin because then it really makes that mirror look shine. Now, once that spray paint was dry, take some clear glaze from Krylon and just gave a couple of coats of the clear glaze to my Mercury glass pumpkin. And here is my pumpkin all done. Not exactly Mercury glass, but it sure looks like it. I am so happy with how this pumpkin turned out, and hopefully this tutorial was helpful for you and easy for you to make your own Mercury glass pumpkin using a Dollar Tree pumpkin. So the first thing we're going to do is use one of these $5 velvet covered pumpkins from the Dollar Tree. And I'm going to pull it apart. I'm going to remove the stem and then the outer velvet covering of the pumpkin because I only want the foam inside. And next I'm going to take some spackling paste and a little bit of water. Now, spackling paste is so incredible to use on these foam pumpkins because let's say that you wanted to spray paint your pumpkin. Well, if you spray paint styrofoam, a lot of times it's going to melt. So by putting a nice thick coat of the spackling paste over the pumpkin, you're protecting that foam so you can paint it. Just a little bonus tip. But for this pumpkin, I'm not going to be spray painting him, but I do want to get rid of that styrofoam appearance. So that's why I'm using this spackling compound, spackling paste. And I'm literally just painting the foam pumpkin with the spackling compound. And then every once in a while, I will give it a spritz of water to kind of smooth the surface down. Using this type of a technique is really nice for giving the foam pumpkin some texture too. So you don't necessarily have to do what I'm going to do, but it really is something so much fun to work with. And once the spackling compound is completely dry, then I'm going to take some paint and paint the pumpkin. I found this Martha Stewart paint at the Dollar Tree, so I just wanted to test it out and see what it would look like. And this is obviously a kind of gray color, and you can really see the detail of that spackling when I give you the close-up like this. Isn't that so much better than the styrofoam look that these pumpkins usually have? And I'm just continuing to paint the entire pumpkin with this Martha Stewart paint. And I think this is a satin type finish, if I remember correctly. They don't always have this at the Dollar Tree, but when they do have paints like this, I do like to pick them up. Now, while that first layer of paint is still wet, I'm going to come back with some white paint because this is going to give it some extra dimension. And I'm just going to repaint or paint over all of that gray, but not paint it solidly because I do want that gray to show through with the white. Again, this gives it some more texture and dimension. Look at how pretty that is. Look at all that texture. You can't even really tell that this was at one time a styrofoam pumpkin. Now, I found these flowers on Amazon, and you actually get 2 sets of these flowers in one package. Look at, aren't they beautiful? They are so pretty, and I think they are going to look lovely on top of my pumpkin. So I just separated the stems and cut each one off. And then I put some hot glue on the top of the pumpkin and just started arranging the stems on the top. And like all of the projects I do, there is no right or wrong way how to do this. If you have some extra stems laying around your own craft room, you can use those. You don't have to necessarily buy new stems. You do what works best for you and will fit into your decor this fall. Gosh, he is so cute. I'm so happy with how he's turning out. And I might as well use that last little piece. Yep, he is perfect. And here is my adorable floral top pumpkin that I made using a $5 pumpkin from the Dollar Tree. The textured paint surface looks so nice. Overall, this was a very fun and satisfying fall project. We are going to start with a Dollar Tree pumpkin. And like my last video, this one is a little bit more expensive. This pumpkin is $3 from the Dollar Tree, and it's not foam. This is actually made out of a plastic material, which will give you a really, really nice finish. And you don't have to worry about seeing the foam. You'll get a really nice finish with this. There's no other way to say it. So this is an iridescent pumpkin, and he's kind of pretty. And I found these pearls at Hobby Lobby for $3.99, but they were 50% off, so it was $2. What a deal. And they have a sticky backing to them. So I just took the pearls and I applied them to my pumpkin. And if you want to make something like this, there is no right or wrong way how to do it. If you want to follow a pattern with your pearls, by all means, knock yourself out. But for me, I just kind of wanted my pearls to be spaced randomly around the pumpkin. So in no particular form or fashion, I just put the pearls on the pumpkin. And this was a really easy project. There was no priming the pumpkin, there was no prep work, nothing was needed other than just attaching the pearls to the plastic pumpkin. It doesn't look like much right now, but I promise in a few minutes, we are going to make this pumpkin look amazing. Pretty fancy. And I wanted to show you, you can do this with the carvable pumpkins from the Dollar Tree as well. It's just a little bit more challenging because you do have to pre-paint the pumpkin. So I used some chalk paint and I painted the pumpkin white. And once my paint was dry, then I just applied the remaining pearls that I had onto the pumpkin. And then I took him outside to paint. And again, when you're spray painting pumpkins like this type of pumpkin, it does seem to work better to use several thin coats to get the look that you're going for. Now the plastic pumpkin, this one's a lot easier. I don't have to worry that I'm going to melt anything. I just have to be careful not to get runs. But again, I did do several light coats of the paint first, and I just kind of build up the paint with each layer. And by doing this, this really helps the little stickers, those pearl stickers, to look like they are part of the pumpkin and not something that you just put on. And here is the finish. Look at that beautiful pumpkin. Isn't he cute? And if you're wondering, the spray paint was in ivory. And the little foam guy doesn't look too bad either. To get started, we're going to need a pumpkin, and this is a plastic pumpkin from the Dollar Tree, and it was $3. And I think this paint will work best with the plastic pumpkin, and this one just happened to be iridescent, so I thought this would be a really good pumpkin to use and trial my mirror paint on. But look at how shiny that is. Oh my gosh, it totally looks like a mirror. So I'm just gonna take the mirror paint, put a little bit on my brush because they say that a little bit goes a long way, and just start painting the pumpkin. And I have to say, this looks really nice. Wow, look at how shiny that is. Now, this mirror paint, like I said, is made by a company called Culture Hustle, and I saw a video on it and I was like, this would look so cool on a pumpkin. Now, it says that it looks just like a real mirror or chrome. It has really incredible coverage, and according to their website, one bottle can cover 8 square feet. You just have to be really cautious and take your time when you're applying this paint. And Culture Hustle also says that the microscopic particle technology, the pigment itself that's used to create this paint, is less than half the size of a red blood cell. So it is super tiny and it flows really, really nice. And one thing to keep in mind if you are going to try this paint out, with your paintbrush, you want to use a really high quality paintbrush, but this paint is it's a different type of base of paint, so you can't clean the brush with regular soap and water. You have to use turpentine or some kind of a paintbrush cleaner. And it does have a rather strong odor, but as long as you use it in a well-ventilated area, you should be good. Look at how beautiful that is. This is just one coat of this paint, and I think he looks amazing. And it really did not take very much of the paint. I had poured some into the lid, and I didn't even use all of that paint to paint this little pumpkin. But I did want to add something a little extra. So once he had dried for over 24 hours, then I attached these leaves, and they're electroplated leaves that are in silver color, and I got them on Amazon. So I will be sure to leave links in the description box below in case you would like to make your own mirror pumpkin with some silver leaves. And actually he looks pretty good. I can see my brush strokes a little bit in the finished paint job, but you know what? I think he turned out really good, and actually better than I was expecting him to turn out. What a pretty little mirror finished pumpkin. All right, so this is the topiary that I found. And again, it's $299. So we are not going to do that. We are going to make our own. So I found these pumpkins at Michael's and I got them for 40% off. So they were a lot more affordable. And we're going to start with the easiest one, which is the orange pumpkin. And I'm using burnt umber. And I'm basically going to make this pumpkin have a little bit more depth by painting on some burnt umber on like the lines of the pumpkin and then wiping it off. This will help it to look a little more aged, I guess you could say, and it gives some depth to the pumpkin itself. So like all of the little dents, I just painted the burnt umber and then just wiped it off. I really like this look and it gives it almost an antique look. And if you don't have burnt umber paint like the acrylic paint, you can use wax as well. And I just worked my way all the way around the pumpkin. So next we have to paint on the polka dots. I like polka dots. Polka dots are fun. And again, these are just apple barrel acrylic paints and I basically just painted dots in a cream color on the pumpkin. And I found that the polka dots don't have to be perfect. It just gives a little bit of color to it and it looks like the original topiary. And once I was finished with the orange pumpkin, then it was time to do the second one. And this one is a little more challenging. And I found some gray pewter. That's the color that I'm using. And this is what I'm going to make the gray lines on the pumpkin. Now this pumpkin is the middle pumpkin of the topiary. And I started with using a foam brush and just kind of painted the lines on. I wasn't exactly sure of how close they should be together, but I just went around the pumpkin and painted some lines to give myself a starting point. And then I used a Dollar Tree paintbrush and just made the lines wider. Now, if you wanted to get perfect with this, you could and tape off the lines, but I was just playing around just to see what it would look like. And yeah, my lines aren't perfect, but I think that gives this a little bit more character. But if you want to make your lines perfect, go ahead and use some painter's tape on your pumpkin to make perfect lines all the way around. And while my second pumpkin was drying, this is going to be the top pumpkin. And I could have bought a white one. I should have bought a white one, but I didn't. So I used some Waverly chalk paint on the orange pumpkin to make it white. And if you'll notice, I keep going back to the original picture of the topiary that I had just to use it as a reference for what I was going to be painting next. And once the chalk paint was dried, then it was time to put the plaid pattern on this little pumpkin. And I've never done anything like this before, painting a plaid pattern on. So I did go back and look at the picture several times while I was painting the pumpkin. So I painted the lines down first, and then I came back and painted around. Now, looking at this, I wish I would have gone a little bit lower, but I think he turned out pretty good. But for my first time, I'm pretty happy with how he turned out. So once I had gone down long ways, then it was time to go around the pumpkin. And I basically did 3 paint lines around the pumpkin. And again, if you wanted this to be perfect, you could tape this off with painter's tape. And I started with the gray paint, and then I added in some black to give it a little bit more depth of color, because again, this is my first time trying to paint plaid. And I decided I wanted the stem to be really bright gold. That was a little bit different than the original topiary, but I really like that. So I found this extreme sheen paint. This is Decor, I believe, and I got it at Hobby Lobby, and it is really gold. So I painted the top stem of the little pumpkin the bright gold. And this definitely is a very bright gold, and it was exactly the look that I wanted. All right, so now my plaid pumpkin is drying, so now it's time to do the green on the middle pumpkin. And again, never done this before, so I figured let's just go for it. That's what's so fun about doing a project like this. It's truly an original. It's truly a custom piece that you're making for yourself. And I didn't have the pretty green, like the sage green that they had on their pumpkin, so I just mixed a couple of greens, added in some yellow, and got this color. So I apologize, I don't know what color this is. I just decided to mix my own green paint. And so I painted the green lines first, and then I just added like a little loop or a circle on either side to, I guess, give it a look like leaves. And then I just continued that pattern on every one of the green lines that I had made on the pumpkin. So now my pumpkins are all dry and beautiful, and I forgot to show you, but I did carve holes in the bottoms of the pumpkins because these are foam pumpkins. It was easy to do because the pumpkins are going to rest on top of each other. So I have a high temperature glue gun, and I just put some glue on the bottom of the middle pumpkin and the top of the bottom pumpkin, and then connected them. And then I did the same on the top pumpkin. I put the glue on the bottom of it and attached it to the middle pumpkin. And just like that, my pumpkin topiary is really looking like a topiary. Now I wanted to give this a really high gloss sheen, so I had some high gloss spray paint and I just spray painted the pumpkins, and it gave a really nice glossy finish to my topiary. very, very shiny. And then I had this old urn or planter and I filled it up with some dirt. And since my topiary is going to be sitting outside, I didn't want the wind to blow it away. So I found a dowel and determined how long I would need it to be. I drilled a hole in the bottom pumpkin and then inserted the dowel. And this will give the topiary a little bit of extra weight so that when it does get windy, it will not blow out of the planter. And then I had a bag of Spanish moss, so I put that in because I wanted to kind of fill the space up. And it did take pretty much an entire bag of the Spanish moss. And then I just put the dowel in the bottom of the pumpkin and then put it into the planter. And then just fluffed up the Spanish moss around the edges a little bit. And this is what the topiary turned out to be. I am so happy with how it turned out. I think it looks beautiful and it was affordable to make. All right, so first you need some tumbling tower blocks for this pumpkin or pumpkins, and some wood crafting cubes and some wood glue. If you don't have wood glue, that's okay. You can also use a hot glue gun, but I do find that the wood glue from the Dollar Tree actually works better for working with the tumbling tower blocks. You don't need very much of it, and it connects the blocks together very well without having any residue, and it's very strong. So first I'm going to take some tumbling tower blocks and I'm going to separate them. So first I have 4, then 3, then a group of 2, then 1, and I've done this twice. Then I'm going to glue the tumbling tower blocks together, each of those little sections. So we're going to have 2 sections that have 4 blocks each. That's what I'm gluing together right here. Then I'm going to glue 3 tumbling tower blocks together. And then 2 together. And again, I'm going to have 2 sets of these tumbling tower blocks. So 2 of the 4 pieces, 2 of the 3 pieces, 2 of the 2 pieces, and 2 of the 1 pieces. Does that make sense? And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to stack them. So I have one of the 4 tumbling tower blocks. I'm stacking the 3 glued together tumbling tower blocks on top of that. Then I'm going to take the 2 tumbling tower blocks and put that on top of the 3. Then I'm going to take the single one and glue that in the center of the 2 glued together tumbling tower blocks. Then I'm going to repeat the process for the other set that I made. So the 4, the 3 is going to get glued to the 4. Then the 2 will get glued to the 3. And then the single one will get glued to the 2. Now I'm going to take both sections and I'm going to glue them together so that the 4s meet up together on the bottom. that is a lot of tumbling tower blocks. But I'm not done. That's one pumpkin, but I'm going to show you how to make a bigger pumpkin doing it the same way. So this took almost an entire container of tumbling tower blocks to make the tall one. And I'm just going to repeat the process, but I'm going to double them. So for the 4, it's going to have 8. For the 3, it's going to have 6. For the 2, it's going to be 4. And for the 1, it will become 2. They're just stacked lengthwise on top of each other. Once you have them all glued together, it's time to assemble the pumpkin. So you have the double 4, you're going to glue the double 3 on top of that. Then you're going to take the double 2 and you're going to glue that to the double 3. And finally, you take the double single and you glue that to, you know what I'm trying to say. Yes. So you can see how you've got one little section like that. And then you're going to repeat the process, the 3 to the 4, then the 2 to the 3, then the 1 to the 2. Can you see how tall this pumpkin's going to be? So then you're going to take both pieces and you're going to glue them together. Now you have a really tall pumpkin. So then the craft cubes are going to be the stems for the pumpkin. So for the smaller pumpkin, I used 1. And for the taller pumpkin, I actually used 2 of the cubes stacked on top of each other. I think they make a perfect stem for the wooden pumpkins. And once the pumpkins had dried, I took some orange acrylic paint. I think this is actually terracotta. And then I used a Dollar Tree brush. This brush is perfect for dry brushing a little bit of paint onto wood projects like this. So I just dabbed a little bit of the paint onto the pumpkins. And if you want, you can totally make this a solid orange or whatever color you want it to be. But for me, I wanted to see a little bit of that natural wood coming through. So it's more of a dry brushing technique for the painting. And if you wanted to get creative, you could use different shades of orange as well, or whatever color you wanted to paint your pumpkin. So I did the sides and then I also did the top. And then I just went back around the sides just to see if I wanted to add in a little bit more orange. So I did it on the small pumpkin and then I repeated the process on the larger one. And if you are using the Dollar Tree wood glue, this stuff is so sturdy. Don't worry, your pumpkin will not break apart. It would take a lot to break apart the pumpkin. You'd have to use a lot of pressure. The glue also dries really quick, so you can do this project probably in just a couple of hours. Now, once I was done with that, then I took some dark wax, just a tiny little bit of it, and I used the same paintbrush, and then I just dry brushed some of that wax onto the pumpkin. I did it on the larger pumpkin, and then I repeated the process on the smaller one. And once I was finished with that, I did go ahead and use that dark wax on the stem or the little cubes that were on the top. Now once that was all dry, then I took some foliage. These are just plastic leaves that I had left over from some other project, and I attached those onto the top of the pumpkins. And to give it a little bit something extra, I took this wired craft paper that I had. I wrapped it around a paintbrush to give it kind of just that rolled or curly appearance, because I want my pumpkins to have a little bit of a curly vine. So I just did that with several pieces of the wired craft paper, and then I secured them to my pumpkins with some hot glue. And there you have it. That is how easy it is to make some pumpkins out of tumbling tower blocks. I know this has been done before, but I wanted to put my own twist on it, and I am so happy with how they turned out. I think they're adorable and they are original, and I think they are a great addition to my fall decor for this year. So the first thing we're going to do is make a wreath. Now this is an 18-inch wreath form. So I'm starting with my wreath, glue gun, and some woven mesh. Now I did get this woven mesh at Hobby Lobby when it was on sale, but they do also have this type of mesh at the Dollar Tree, and again, it's $1, so it's really affordable. But basically I'm just wrapping this mesh around the wire form of the wreath. And once I get to the end of wrapping it, then I do use a little bit of the hot glue to secure the mesh in place. And I've learned my lesson of not getting burned by using a pair of scissors to actually help whatever it is that I'm gluing down stay down without burning my fingers on the hot glue. And just to show you how much of the mesh that I used, I still have enough left, actually a lot left, that I can make a couple of more wreaths. And there's the wreath all done and ready for the flower process. Now, a lot of these flowers did come from the Dollar Tree, and what's nice with the Dollar Tree flowers is you get 5 flowers in a bunch, so that's going to give me 5 different flowers that I can put onto the wreath. And there's no right or wrong way of how to apply the flowers. I basically just kind of place them all around the wreath, with my end goal being to completely cover the wreath with the different flowers.
Of all the magic places in the world I've been to, this is where my heart is. Oh, you know it's true. No matter where I go, I'm coming home to you. Been walking down the street so many times, my feet know every brick and stone. Could wear a blindfold. No matter what I do, I'm coming home to you. And I don't know why, don't know why, don't know why, I'm always feeling homesick.
And as I go through the process, you can see that just by simply applying flowers in any open spaces really fills up the wreath. And then I flipped over the wreath and I did apply the leaves that I cut off of the flower stems. I applied those all around the back of the wreath. And once I was finished with gluing the leaves on, then I just took some little pieces and kind of placed them throughout the wreath just to give it a little more depth. And you can see the bow on the front. Those actually come in a 2-pack at the Dollar Tree. So I got 2 bows for $1. And again, there's no right or wrong way. I just feel that the more full I make this wreath, the better it looks. There's one of my wreaths.
Of all the magic places in the world I've been to, this is where my heart is. Oh, you know it's true.
And look at that. I have 2 because these are going to go in the front of my house. And here are the wreaths all hung up. All right, next, this is a really fun project, and I'm using some foam pumpkins from the Dollar Tree and an old sweater that I don't use anymore, actually a couple of old sweaters, and we're gonna make sweater pumpkins. And these are really easy to do. I actually watched someone else do it on YouTube, and I thought, well, that's pretty easy. Let's go ahead and make some sweater pumpkins. And I really like these pumpkin stems from some other pumpkins, so I kept those. And now I'm just going to pull apart these pumpkins. One came off really good. That's how it's supposed to come off. And the other one, well, it didn't. And then carefully using a knife, I just cut holes in the top and in the bottom of both of the pumpkins. Now these foam pumpkins are actually hollow. So these are their carving pumpkins. But you can see they are definitely hollow and they are not foam all the way through. And to make the pumpkin look like a sweater, I'm actually using the arms of each of the sweaters. So I cut off the arm and then just put it over the pumpkin. And I have a lot of extra material, which I don't really need. So there it goes. And then I just used my glue gun around the edge of the inside of the foam. And then tucked the material in. Pretty easy, right? But I wanted my pumpkin to have some little embellishments, some leaves. So I found these leaves. Again, these are from the Dollar Tree on their autumn garland. And then I wanted to add a little dimension, so I added some green leaves as well. And sometimes you just kind of have to play around and figure out where you want things to go. And it's not right or wrong, it's just what you think looks nice and the end result that you're looking for. And all that was left to do was to put the stem on. Now, if you wanted to, you could paint the stem or you could cover it with raffia, but I liked it how it was, so I left it just like it originally was. And then I just added some extra, I guess you could almost call them viney things, like kind of hanging down the edge of the pumpkin. Now these are my sweater pumpkins. I made 3 of them and I think they look really cute. And I'm really impressed at how they have such big pieces like this one with the plain wood that basically I just have to paint it anyway, and I really like the layered look. And then these Thankful and Blessed pumpkins are really large too, and they actually have a metal leaf along with a raffia bow that I plan on using at the end of this project. So I'm going to take those off and set them aside for the end of the project. And next I just took some different paints and put them in a little paint tray to get ready to paint my pumpkins. And I wasn't really sure which color I was going to use, so I just put all different colors in the little paint tray. All right, now this is the fun part. This is where we get to paint and get really artistic. The first thing I did was paint everything just one solid color, and I used quite a bit of paint because I really want to make sure that it's wet because of the different painting techniques that I'm going to be using once I get to the end.
Years have passed and restless legs have settled.
And if you are planning on doing something like this, I would highly encourage you to make sure you paint all of the edges because those will be showing. All right, I have a good layer of paint on this orange pumpkin. So now I'm just going to add in some different colors, and this will add some dimension and depth to the pumpkin. And this is why it's so important to have a lot of paint on the pumpkin, because we want those colors to blend. I really like how that's blending together. You can add some light colors, some dark colors. Everything will just give a little bit of depth. And I can't forget to do his stem. All right, the orange pumpkin is all done. Now it's time to move on to one of the bigger Thankful and Blessed pumpkins. And this one, I decided, I really like blue. I think it would pop and look really nice with the orange. So I did kind of an aqua color, and it's almost like a robin's egg blue that I have as well. And again, I start by having a thick coat of paint on the surface of the piece that I'm painting. Now, all of the paintbrushes that I'm using and the paint trays, they came from Dollar Tree. And the paints I got at Walmart, they're, I think, apple barrel paints, and they were 50 cents a piece. I really like the paintbrushes from Dollar Tree, believe it or not. They work really well, especially for crafting like this. And at $1 for a pack of 2, or sometimes you can get a pack of 5, they are very affordable. All right, so now I'm going in with a different lighter shade of blue. This is more of an aqua color, almost a robin's egg blue, I guess. And now we get into the shading and giving this flat pumpkin some dimension by adding different colors. And I want to add some highlights, which is the white, along with some shadowing, which is the brown. Next, I take a dry 1-inch paintbrush and just kind of blend everything together. Again, this is why it's important to have a lot of paint that the colors can blend really well. I guess this would almost be a dry brushing technique in a way, sort of.
Yesterday there was sun and there was rain, beauty in the mundane. And as the light startled our eyes, we let go of disguise.
Now, the fun thing about painting these pumpkins is, it's really hard to mess it up. By adding the different colors, you get lots of different shades of the blues, the browns, the whites, and it looks really nice, and it does give some depth to the flat pumpkin. And I am pretty happy with how he looks. But I can't leave the stem out. I really like how the base of the stem is, and I'm just adding a little bit of darker color. I think this is burnt sienna or burnt umber that I'm adding to the stem, and then some gold.
Hand in hand, building castles out of sand, reaching for the grand. As willows align.
All right, we are on to the last pumpkin, and this one I wanted to be more of a cream color. So I'm starting off with basically a tan paint. I think the colors of the aqua, the orange, and the tan or cream will work really nicely together.
Easy on our tiptoes, undercover agents of the other, beyond gravel, beyond all. A bigger scale, the world inhales as we go. I wouldn't want it any other way, no. Dreamy, breezy, we go. Easy, easy on our tiptoes, undercover agents of the other.
And this uses so much paint, I decided just to drop some of the paint from the container onto the pumpkin.
We go. Easy, easy on our tiptoes, undercover agents of the other, beyond gravel, beyond all.
All right, pretty close to being happy with how much paint is on this pumpkin. It's got a nice wet look, you can see. So now it's time to add some different shades on here, and we're going to start with the burnt umber. And then add in some white. And some gold. And then I wanted to use a finer paintbrush just to add in a little more detail of the lines on the pumpkin.
Watch me under the light, so keep me in your sight, 'cause I can do this all night. You can call it what you want, I got something else in mind. Oh, if it's you I've been waiting for, I better make it worth
And then I use a 1-inch brush again that's completely dry and just kind of soften all of the paint lines that I just put together. And this just helps to soften all of the paint and blend everything a little bit more. So next I have to have something to put my pumpkins on. So I have this canvas that I don't use anymore. And instead of getting rid of it, I decided to recycle it. And this is going to be the backdrop for our pumpkins. But I wanted a solid color or close to a solid color, and the blue and the gold just really wasn't going to work. So I took paints that I got from the Dollar Tree and basically used this as a blank canvas by painting everything white. And then I added just a little bit of black on the edge of the paintbrush and then just blended the black and the white to make a gray color. But I did want to have some difference and not just have it solid gray. So I just went back and forth over the canvas to blend things together, but not 100%. And I'm really liking how this is turning out. I really like the depth that this is offering this blank canvas. But it was missing a little bit. So what I did was I just took some black and white and I just kind of dropped it down onto the canvas. And then just using the brush, I just went back and forth to kind of blend things together, but there's still a little bit of depth to it and it's just a little bit softer. And I'm literally just shaking the paint over the canvas. So here is the finished canvas. This is what it looks like with dropping the paint on over top of the white and then the black that I blended to make the gray. All right, so now we have our canvas drying and our pumpkins are dry. So now it's time to make 3 pumpkins into one piece that will go onto the canvas. So I just used my glue gun and attached the orange pumpkin to the top of the cream colored pumpkin and the aqua pumpkin. And then I just added those embellishments that I took off in the beginning. I just put them back on.
You make me smile, what is it that you do? My life was great till you added colors. Like the moon is the sun, we don't care about the others. You set my world on fire. You're my heart's desire. I just wanna love you, just wanna hold you, just wanna be with you till we grow old. Please tell me you'll stay or take me away. I want you for myself.
And once my canvas is dry, it's time to put the pumpkins onto the canvas for good. See, they still say thankful and blessed. So I just put some glue on the back of the pumpkins.
I just want you, I just need you. I don't know what it is you do.
And then determined where I wanted them to be on the canvas and pressed down. And now I have a fall piece of art that I can hang on my wall.
I just wanna love you, just wanna hold you, just wanna be with you till we grow old. Please tell me you'll stay or take me away. I
Pretty
want you for
darn
myself
awesome.
every single day. You set
This is the pumpkin piece hanging on my wall. I really am so happy with how this turned out, along with all of my projects. All right, so we're going to start with the main part of this craft project, and that is the tiered tray. So I found these items at the Dollar Tree. First, I found these stove covers, and they came in a set of 2. And then I got a pizza pan and a candlestick. This is a glass candlestick, and then a bud vase. And then to attach everything, I'm using Gorilla Glue. And then I had some leftover spray paint from another project, and that will finish off our tiered tray. So first I'm kind of playing around and figuring out how this is gonna go, and how do I want the candlestick, which position do I want it to be in. I'm pretty happy with that configuration. So then I just attached the bud vase to the pizza pan, and the pizza pan is facing up. And for the bud vase, I'm putting some Gorilla Glue around the rim, and then I'm going to attach that to the center of the pizza pan. And for the second tier, I'm going to use the larger stove cover and just put some of the glue on the top, or the bottom, I guess you could say, of the bud vase. And I find that the Gorilla Glue works just like the E6000, and it was what I had, so that was what I decided to use. And by attaching the stove plate like this, it gives a little bit of a rim, and that will make a really nice tray for the second level. And for the third level, I put some glue on the top of the candlestick and then attached it. And then once again, I put some glue on the top portion of the candlestick for the third tier to go on. And it's a little bit challenging to make sure all of the pieces line up in the center of the tray. As you can see, it's like, ooh, that's not centered. Ooh, now it is. Oh, there we go. Oh, there it is. That is centered. And this is the first step of our tiered tray. And then once the glue was dry and the pieces were firmly attached, then I just used some spray paint and spray painted everything white. And you can do whatever color you want. If you wanted a gray one, if you wanted a white one, or even metal, whatever color you want it to be, this is where you get to be a little creative, and you can make your tiered tray whatever you want it to be. But for me, I had white spray paint and I liked the white look, so that's what I did. And I did this in several coats. So I applied one coat, I let it dry, and then I applied another coat of the spray paint. I was very careful to make sure I didn't have any runs, and I did one side at a time. And what I mean by that is this is the upright side, so I'm doing this side first, and then once it was completely dry, then I flipped it over. And then once it was completely dry, I flipped it over and spray painted the bottom portion. And once I had my spray painting done, I wanted to give the tiered tray time to dry. So I decided to do a couple of fillers that are going to go on this tray. And these are some votive candle holders that I found at the Dollar Tree, and I really liked the pattern that was on them. And I had some almond colored spray paint, and I thought that would look really fall. So I just spray painted the votive holders with the almond paint. And by putting the glass jars on the box, it makes it really easy to turn. So I just have to stand there and just turn the box. And that way I can easily paint all sides of the candle holders. But like I said, these aren't going to be candle holders anymore. These are going to be little vases. And I think they'll look really nice on the tiered tray. I really like this spray paint. This is just Rust-Oleum spray paint that you can use on metal or plastic. And this one has a gloss finish, so it'll be nice and shiny. And this is how they turned out after a couple of coats of the spray paint. They have a really nice shine to them. And I just want to add a little bit of decoration, so I took some jute cord and then I just tied it and wrapped it around the top edge of the candle holder, which is now a vase. And I thought about adding extras, but in the end I decided, you know what, I like it just like this. It's something simple and a little farmhouse style, I guess you could say, and definitely fall. And just like that, a votive holder has been turned into a vase. And I really like all of the different mugs that I see for fall, like pumpkin spice everything and hello pumpkin. So I decided to use my Cricut machine and some permanent vinyl and make some transfers that I can put onto some coffee mugs so I can have my own personalized fall coffee mugs. So I just found some words that I liked, and this one is pumpkin spice everything. And on the permanent vinyl, then I attached it to the transfer tape. And then using my Cricut cutter, I cut it out so it makes it easier to apply to the mugs. Pumpkin spice everything. And then I took a mug that I got at the Dollar Tree, and then I just applied the decal to the front of the mug. And then I carefully peeled back the transfer tape, keeping the letters on the mug. Isn't that adorable? So now my tiered tray is all dry, and now I just have to decorate it. So I'm going to start with the mugs. Again, these are from the Dollar Tree. And then I just added some embellishments. So some little pieces of flowers from crafts that I had before. A homemade bead garland that I made for the fall. And this cute little truck that I got at Hobby Lobby. And I even put some hay bales in it. And little pumpkins. Again, those are from Hobby Lobby. And I did add a little bit of glue to the pumpkins so that they would stick to the hay bales in the back of the truck. And these are the beautiful Dollar Tree vases that I made. And then I just added a floral pick. Then I have some little pumpkins, a thankful pumpkin that also came from Hobby Lobby. And then I just randomly put little pieces here and there, a couple of extra pumpkins, just to complete and fill my tray. And this is what's so fun about creating a tiered tray. You can add little accents, little decorations, and it really adds a different level and dimension to your decorating. This was such a fun and easy project. I'm so happy with the results and how it turned out. And now I have my very own tiered tray that I made for probably around $5. If you like this video, I would love it if you would subscribe to my channel so you can watch all my other DIY projects. And I can't wait to see you in the next video. And until next time, happy crafting!
Never up.